Thank you, NASCOM, for the opportunity to speak once again. In many people's eyes, this is an important topic, and I think from our perspective, it's equally as much. Now, we are CO2 Hero, and the idea behind, of course, what we stand for is to help people take carbon-friendly action. And when we talk about that, we're really focused on this idea of taking carbon-friendly action through a platform. In fact, a platform that is technology focused, and right, like most people in the world these days, available through a smartphone. And we want that, of course, to then be translated into a smartphone that is either on the Apple App Store and/or on the Google Play Store. Now, when it comes to our vision and the way that SMEs and others of a similar nature often think about this, right, is very different from our whole customer set, at least in terms of the Fortune 500 that we serve. But the principles of it are actually very similar in the sense that we want to think about the E within ESG, and more importantly, understand what it means to take these carbon-friendly actions, no matter where these organizations are thinking about operating as they continue to grow as well. And it really means that we think about this in two different ways. One, carbon-friendly actions in people's professional life, which is of course the SMEs that are going to be seeing and listening to this conversation. And two is, in many ways, the same individuals who are inside of those SMEs thinking about this in their personal lives. Now, that's perhaps a conversation for a different type of event, but I think one way or another, when it comes to people's professional life within these SMEs, it's really about understanding the dynamics of how climate action can be taken. From our perspective, it's focused on scope 3, and specifically scope 3 upstream activities, one of which is recycling, two of which is reusing, three of which is around how people go to and from work, and four, more often than not, is around the business travel. Now, of course, with COVID-19 in place, there are many restrictions, but one way or another, it is still an avenue to think about when it comes to taking carbon-friendly action. And how do we do it? Well, we do it on a number of different fronts. And we would suggest that SMEs think about it in very similar ways, in a way that allows them to allow employees themselves to think hard about the goals that they want to set. So what does it mean to recycle perhaps 1 kilo versus 5 kilos versus 50 kilos of plastic bottles that maybe are used for water on a daily basis? Or what does it mean to think about cycling or walking instead of perhaps using a metro or a public mode of transport? Or perhaps even more simple than that, shall I actually refill my coffee cup based on the same cup that I've been using all day long? But I think one way or another, it's about taking these actions, setting goals for these types of actions, and at the same time, competing with your colleagues. So this is, of course, how we think about the technology that's underpinning this, but more importantly, the behavioral psychology behind that technology solution as well. And so the way we think about SMEs getting involved, just like Fortune 500s, is exactly the same in that we want people to feel like they can set goals for themselves. We want people to feel comfortable that they can achieve those goals. And we want people to think hard about how they can compete in a positive way to be able to nudge them towards more climate positive behavior on a daily basis as well. Okay. Now, it's just to say that, when you think about this from the perspective of one SME relative to very large organizations in the world, at the end of the day, there are millions and millions of people who can, who want to, and who will make a positive difference to the climate. And that's something that impacts all of us. And it's our way of saying that every small action matters. In many ways, these small actions add up to something significant. And more importantly, when you do this consistently, it starts to have a real impact. From one perspective, and I can share this, we had an organization who is one of our customers within 4 weeks take climate action through our platform in a way that helped them to save, when extrapolated over the course of a year, just over 1,000 tons of CO2. So it's just a simple way of saying that no matter what you choose as your goal, you can have a significant impact in the broader scheme or in the bigger scheme of what it is that your SME is thinking about doing as well. Now, you're probably curious, I've referred to our product as well. So here's what it looks like. And it's just to say that, at the end of the day, there are many different ways to do this. We have developed a solution that is really two sides to the same coin. One, which is a game, and a game that is focused on the behavioral psychology principles that drive people to want to compete, but allow them to take these small actions. And again, as an SME, you can do exactly the same things that larger organizations do. And actually, you have the opportunity to do it earlier on in your journey as you continue to grow, which is even better for addressing the E within the ESG component as well. And on the other side of the equation, right, or the coin as it were, is of course how you think about hitting company-wide targets. Now, you may or may not have already developed as an SME a particular strategy behind how you want to hit certain types of carbon targets in particular, but one way or another, you naturally will. And as you think about your ESG framework, as you think about your ESG strategy that supports that framework, and more importantly, as you start to grow and think about how you may or may not want to address this, often for public purposes, especially for investors and shareholders, you can then rely on, right, from our perspective at least, the data, the methodology, the principles that allow you to take this action, and more importantly, have it assured in a way that you can then recognize it for other benefits as well. Okay, so it's really about understanding what we call employee lifestyle challenges and the simple fact that every action matters. From our perspective, it's a game that allows you to take action. And from the other perspective, of course, a game that also allows the organization to account for those actions in the right way. And it doesn't matter if that organization is an SME or a larger organization in its own right as well. And finally, right, we all understand this. Now, it's even that much more important for SMEs because data really does matter. At the end of the day, employees can take actions, but if you aren't calculating things, if you aren't constructing the methodologies in the correct way to actually understand what it means to save CO2, if you aren't thinking about your LCAs or other components of how you think through your ESG strategy more broadly, and specifically the E component, then all of this will fall apart. But more importantly, right, if you get it right from day one, then the reality is that you can rely on that time and time again. And there are many different ways to do this. We work with insight bodies as well as data sources from DEFRA, EPA, Elsevier, right through to some of the ones you see here, always following the greenhouse gas emissions protocol. I think if you have the opportunity to do so, especially as an SME, you should consider doing that very early on. It will only make life easier as an organization, but also allow you to be more credible as you continue to grow, and specific to, of course, your ESG strategy as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, but also thank you, NASCOM, for allowing us to participate in this wonderful event.